even in daily life, like you accomplish so many things on a daily basis that you just kind of do and don't recognize and don't like take a moment to be like, wow, that was like really cool. I did that. That was awesome. I'm proud of myself. Celebrate what you've done, and then you can get back to work.
Welcome to The Other 3 Years, a show for anyone who has an Olympic-sized dream they want to turn into a reality. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Other 3 Years podcast. My name is Kristi Wagner, and this week is a banger episode. I mean, I really think they're all banger episodes, but this one is especially fun and awesome. I interviewed the U.S. women's quad who just qualified for the Paris Olympics at the final Olympic qualification regatta in Lucerne, Switzerland. Not only did they qualify, but they actually won the regatta and are having a great season. And I know I'm not alone in being really happy and excited to continue to cheer them on as they race in Paris. I'm so happy for my friends and teammates. And by qualifying, it means we've qualified every women's boat for the Paris Olympics as Team USA. The USA women are the only country to have done this again for the second straight Olympics, and I just feel so lucky to be a part of such an amazing and hardworking group of women. So the quad is comprised of my Orion teammate, Lauren O'Connor. She's joined by Teal Cohen, Emily Delleman, who we all call Delly, and Grace Joyce. The entire boat joined me, and they all shared such awesome stuff. And I know everyone is going to learn a ton from this episode and enjoy hearing from the girls. Before we get into that, here's an update on what is currently going on in my training. We're still in Princeton, New Jersey. Right now, we're doing a bit more mileage and meters, lower intensity stuff to just kind of build our base back up. It's a little bit unexciting, but practice has been going pretty well. It's definitely warm in Princeton. It's actually been a little bit cooler the past couple of days, which is nice. Last week it was really hot. I think I had ice cream like every day last week because it was just so hot and I needed the ice cream. We've been sleeping in our altitude tents, which are very interesting. I actually have been sleeping pretty well. I have not noticed it a ton, except that it is absolutely hilarious to have to zip yourself out of a tent when you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. This weekend, we are going to a Trenton Thunder baseball game. I have no idea. It's probably like AAA or something. And Nina, who is the coxswain for the women's 8, is throwing out the first pitch. So that should be absolutely hilarious, but also super fun and a nice little break from, Princeton. So that's definitely something to look forward to. This weekend is Father's Day as well. I'm sad that I won't be able to spend Father's Day with my dad, but next week he is going to be on the podcast as a Father's Day episode. So that's something to look forward to for everybody. My dad is hilarious and enjoys lots of things. For some reason, what's coming to my mind right now is exercising and drinking martinis. So I probably won't drink a martini, but I hope dad has many a martini, a good martini with blue cheese olives for Father's Day. So with that, it is time for my episode with the recently qualified USA Women's Olympic Quad. Hi guys, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast.
So excited to be here.
That is always an awkward moment. I don't know how to make that moment of podcasting not awkward. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I mostly want to ask about stuff this year just because I feel like it's an interesting pathway. Well, everyone's pathways are interesting, but I think it's an interesting pathway into what has happened so far. But I did want to just start asking specifically Lauren and Grace about last year, not to be a bit of a downer, but Lauren, maybe if you want to talk a little bit about sort of coming off of World Champs last year, not having qualified the boat, how your outlook for this year was affected by that.
I mean, I definitely think it was hard for the mindset going into it because, you train and you do everything you can and you're like, oh, I feel like I put everything out there and we weren't successful, which was really hard. But then it was like, pretty great to come into it and like have like a whole like new set of people to be around. It's like, which is kind of terrifying too, because you're like, I don't know how it's gonna like match up. You're never like sure of your seat. So it's kind of like, okay, was I part of the like problem? Like that's kind of a hard mindset to take into it, going away from that and like just trying to think about everything in your own power that you can do to make yourself better for the next year. Because at the end of the day, that's all you can do is do everything that, like yourself that you can do to put yourself in the best spot. So it was hard, but also I think very motivating. And I think that was kind of helpful for like the whole boat in general has all gone through experiences where we like didn't necessarily succeed in the way we wanted to. So it was kind of like it was almost like a unifying power of like you had to deal with this and now you can either capitalize on it or you can let it like affect you.
Grace, like kind of piggybacking backing off of that, following racing last year and then probably a break, did you feel like you had specific things that you wanted to change about training for this year?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off what Lauren said, I think like working so hard for that goal and not qualifying the boat for the Olympics and being the only women's boat to not qualify for the Olympics during that World Championship was devastating. It was devastating. So I think, like, to say the least, that's one of those times what Lauren was saying. It's like there's no win or lose. It's like win or learn. So it's like, what are we taking from this race and how are we moving forward? And I think that came in the form of what Lauren is talking about individually. What do we need to improve? Because it's kind of hard once you qualify the boat, those boats aren't set with the lineup for Paris. Those boats need to be kind of reselected with different people trying out different combinations. So, what Lauren was saying, like going into the fall in the next year, looking at myself, it's like, how can I be the best rower I can be for this boat class? And like, what do I need to do to kind of get ahead? And I looked back on the past year and on the things that I, as an individual, couldn't keep up with training wise or like volume wise or strength wise. And I like worked with my strength coach and nutrition coaches up in Vermont to kind of like implement those changes to be as sure as I could be going into selection that like I was a sure choice to this boat and I can not only like maintain the speed of the boat but add to the speed of the boat. The overarching is like everyone just kind of doing what they can to be the best.
Yeah. Deli, maybe I'll ask you this. Like, we obviously all, like, as scullers, train a lot in singles and, we obviously all erg a lot, but the quad is a different boat than the single. So, did you guys in Vermont spend time in big boats or was it just all like singles and erg training before, getting into camp?
I would say we really spent very little time in big boats when we were up in Vermont, unfortunately, even though we probably could have taken advantage of that. I think with the process that's laid out by Yossi, there's very much an expectation that you perform in the single in order to earn your spot to the various selection camps. And so I think there's always pressure when you're trying to like break into the camps to be able to perform at fall speed order and then winter speed order. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of time to be able to prioritize those big boats. I've rowed many quads historically, and I think I just had some like confidence going into it, knowing that I at least had some experience in the boat class and was just trying to like ride that as much as I could, and just make sure like I was as fit through my like time in the single and erging as possible so that going into selection, I just could fall back on that fitness.
Yeah. Kind of leads me into my next question for Teal. So, having all of you spent so much time in the single when it came time for selection camp, what was it like suddenly being in a boat with three other people and kind of what was the selection camp process like?
So I like just came over from the sweep side in the fall. So I like sculled in high school. I rode a lot of quads in high school. Have not rode any quads since then. So that was however many years ago. So I think I just knew that I had to get myself to a place where like my fitness and strength could put me in a place to make the boat. And then I was like, okay, we'll figure out how to row later. But I think I just had to like be so confident in my fitness and like just prove to the coaches that they needed my physiology in the boat. So I think that's what I really spent the majority of the year focusing on. And then when it came time to actually get into the quad, I think it definitely took me, it was an adjustment period for sure, because it's just such a fast moving boat. And like spending all year in the single is very different. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we throughout selection camp tried a lot of things, but I think the first day we got in this lineup, it like really clicked. And I think that was one of the first days where I like felt super confident in how I was moving a big boat. Yeah, we had some early days in camp that just gave me, and I think probably everyone else too, a lot of confidence in like the way we were moving the boat together.
Yeah, and another question, Teal, for you, like there are like were a lot of steps, right? Like you got to make the boat through selection camp, you got to win trials, then you got to go to FOQR and like place at FOQR. Did that ever seem kind of overwhelming? Like I thought you guys did a really good job kind of focusing on like whatever the next thing was, you know, from the outside, not full outside, but like a little bit outside of it. Was that true, or was it like, oh my God, we have all these things we have to do?
Yeah, I think it was definitely like sometimes you could kind of get in your head and get overwhelmed, but I think we did a really good job like breaking it up and taking it one step at a time. And we'd finish a big step, we'd talk about it, we'd reset, and then we'd start again on the next one. So I think it was definitely like we knew it was going to be a long road, but I think it was a challenge that we were all up for.
Lauren, can you talk a little bit about trials?
I think trials was a very interesting experience because going into it, knowing our speed, like you never want to go into a race being like, well, I'm going to win and it's not going to be like hard at all. But also, I think there was kind of an expectation from like the coaches and having seen our speed that was kind of like, okay, this is just like basically checking a box. The other two quads were like, it was very fun to race against them. Like obviously we're all teammates with a lot of those people in those quads, but it was also very interesting because I think to the outside you see it labeled as like Olympic trials. They're like, this is this big moment, you're going to Olympic trials. Like Teal said, we really like did a good job of keeping our focus on the task at hand and being like, we have to complete this and then we'll go on to the next step. But at the same time, it was kind of like, to us, we're like, there's three of us. We kind of know the speed of the quads that we're racing. We just kind of need to do this in order to move on to the next piece of our journey. So I think it was really great to be able to race. And that was the first time we really did like our 2K together, like all the way through. And I think that was very helpful going into like FOQR and stuff like that. We were like, okay, we already have this experience. But at the same time, it was also kind of like, this is sort of just a formality. And like, it has kind of this big title that other people are like, oh my God, you're racing Olympic trials. But then for us, it was also kind of just like, yeah, we're doing a 2K. Like, we're just kind of going through that. And we just need to complete this.
I feel like it's also funny though, like on the flip side of it, last year, Sophia and I raced at doubles trials, like after the whole team had been named. And the way that like other people talked about it was like we had already made the team. And I was like, but we do have to race at this race. And like, it's a race. Like anything can happen. It's a very interesting position to be. The favorite seems like an interesting term, but like the favorites going into a race in a sport where, I mean, crazy things happen all the time, right? So like you do still have to show up and race.
I feel like the cool thing throughout this whole process is it's just built a lot of trust in one another because we've been in so many high stress, high intensity situations throughout the whole process that I think now I feel like we can just show up on the line at the Olympics and like I know that these girls are gonna like show up and just like race their hearts out, like without a doubt. So I think that I'm actually quite grateful that we've had the journey we have had to get here because I think we've all had to like fight tooth and nail like through like quad selection. Trials was a great time to like see how we all handle like nerves and like the actual like racing environment and then showing up to FOQR. I don't know. I think that I wouldn't want to have like made it here any other way now in hindsight.
That's so nice. No, it is. It is.
Agreed, Deli.
Yeah.
Grace, can you talk a little bit about the time between trials and FOQR? Obviously, sort of like no tomorrow after FOQR if you don't advance. So, like, how did you guys approach that? And what was the like vibe, so to speak, of training? Because it seemed like you guys were like always rowing in the afternoon, like training really hard. Very impressed with the amount of strokes you took.
We took a lot of strokes, very many strokes. Yeah, kind of what everyone was saying. We took it really step by step, day by day, practice by practice. It kind of depends on like what part of the training block we're in, on like what bite-sized chunks I would mentally break it up into. And I think the time when we arrived at Princeton, there were a lot of things that were very challenging, but there were a lot of things that were kind of like we were able to kind of take a breath. Like we started working with Kat full time, so having a coach every practice, watching every stroke was, I think, huge for us. Being around the team again when we were in Sarasota. So a lot of the team was like taking some time to go home and stuff. So I don't know. I thought it was really nice to like be around the team again, have a coach full time again, but also it was really cool to see how we held ourselves accountable and each other accountable. I think that there was like that was sort of in Princeton the beginning of filling out how we communicate most effectively and how we practice and execute each day most effectively. And I think a lot of that ended up looking like us the first to show up at Mercer, us the first to launch, and us the last to dock. And I think there were a lot of strokes and there were many K. Like some of the other groups would go out and just do 4x4K, but no, we would go out there, we do a full 6K warm up, we do 4x4K, we do a cool down. And then I think all of those strokes really added up to the fitness foundation that backed us into Italy, which like that was, I don't know if you're asking about Italy, but that was definitely a different time from Princeton. I think like going abroad and starting the taper and getting the energy up because we have a little more time to not be as fatigued. I think personally, there is an uncertainty there. Like going to FOQR, like with that comes like some form of insecurity. And I think in Italy, we had to like reassess the communication and reassess like what is the most effective way to move forward. And I think we all handled that pretty well because Switzerland is probably another topic someone else can talk about. But like when we got there, we were ready. And I think I like credit that to the accountability, to all the strokes that we've taken, and to the times of flux of like getting down really close to the uncertain and like being kind of nervous and then like picking each other back up and like just having that trust in each other that Deli was talking about from the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. Switzerland was another question, but that was a great interlude into it.
Yeah.
Teal, everyone talks about FOQR as like the most stressful race. Like, you know, the energy is like the most intense you've ever seen at a regatta. Did you feel that? What was your vibe both for the preliminary race, which is also interesting? We don't, especially as scullers, like we don't usually only have a race for lanes and then a final. So how did you guys approach that? And then the time between the preliminary race and the final?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like going into it. I think kind of like what Grace was saying, as the energy started to come back in Italy, I think like sometimes we'd have rows where like things like people would start to like, it was kind of obvious we were all starting to get stressed. But I think, you know, we kind of talked about it. We had a game plan. We were ready. And I think when we got to Switzerland, like I have never seen any of us so focused and like we'd come to breakfast, we'd sit down, no one would even speak to each other, we'd just do our things, we'd do our stretches, we'd go, we'd row, we'd come back to the hotel, and that was that. And I think we were just so focused and so in tune with what we were doing that it was like, I don't know. I think when I started to feel that energy, I was like, okay, like no one's stopping us from doing this. I think people really build up how horrible and how stressful FOQR is. And I think to an extent, yes, it's stressful, but I think I wasn't on the world's team last year, and I've never attempted to qualify a boat for the Olympics. So I was like, this isn't our last chance. Like, this is our first chance to qualify. And I think going into the preliminary race, we just were really confident that if we could execute what we'd practiced and talked about, we would end up in a good place. And we were. And then we come back, reset. We knew there were things to work on, but also there were a lot of things that we'd done really well. So I think going into the final, we again had that same confidence that if we could just execute, we would end up in a good place. And I think coming out of it, we were so focused in the entire time, and just so like it was obvious like no one was getting in our way. So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. And I love what you said about this is our first chance, not our last chance. That's sports psychologist would be very proud of you.
We did a lot of that.
We so much sports psych, let me tell you.
Oh, tell me
who is
about it.
listening to this, if you don't have a sports psych, you should get a sports psych. I think there was the first week of sports psych. We sat, they're like, we're doing sports psych this week. And we're like, perfect, we're in, let's do it. And they're like, all right, we're meeting for 1 hour, 3 days in a row, each night after a 2.5 hour row, an hour lift, a 90-minute PM, video sessions, PT. And they're like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to do an hour of sports psych. And it was crazy and it worked. And we were so chill. So check it out if you haven't looked into a sports psych.
Yes. Sports psychs are doing God's work for all of us.
Yeah.
Lauren, the final was a very exciting race. Tell the people about it.
The final, kind of like Teal said going into it, like it's kind of crazy when I stop and think about it, because I feel like I've never been so like focused mentally in a way that like I remember essentially the entire race. Like I feel like sometimes you do a race and you're like, I don't remember what happened from 300 to 1250. I don't know what happened, but like it truly was like the entire time I had so much confidence in like what we were doing, and I was just like, everyone in this boat is going to do exactly what they need to do. I don't need to, like, I kept saying that like I didn't look out of the boat once, which like you really shouldn't at stroke seat, but like I was like, my eyes are locked on the starting blocks. I have not looked out of this boat once, but I like have full confidence that we are exactly where we need to be. And I remember like a couple of like distinct moments. One was like we got hit by like a headwind at probably like 800 meters in, and being like, oh, this is our moment. And it was, because we kind of like moved. We like, that was like our moment of like, we're good at this and we know how to handle this. And also then going into the last 500, like we watched the race back, and everyone afterwards was like, oh my God, that race was so stressful. You really like freaked us out. But I remember going into that last 500 and being like, we're just executing the race plan. We're doing exactly what we want to do. We're pulling Ukraine back to us and we are pushing off of Canada. And I remember watching Canada start to walk, and I hear Teal say more, and they stopped walking and we just kept going. And I was like, I don't even need to know where Ukraine is. We are moving exactly like we need to move. And we crossed the finish line. There was no finish horn, which was crazy. So we didn't know when the race was over.
We rode for a long time through the line.
We did, which was good. But then Grace went, I think we won. And I was like, I have no idea what happened, but I know we at least got second. So it was just, I don't think I've ever felt that calm in a race in my entire life. It really was like, we are doing exactly what we've planned and practiced. And with our sports psych, we had our walkthrough. We did the walkthrough of that mentally so many times. It felt like the 100th time we've done that race. It was just like, we know what's going to happen and we don't even have to question it. So it was really awesome to just like finish it and be like, yep, we did exactly what we wanted to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, we were all very excited watching. It was like very overwhelming, actually. I've realized like I don't think I can have children that participate in sports because it is far too stressful to like be on the sidelines. But also, that is commendable to you not to look out of the boat. I got scolded many times at World Cup for looking out of the boat. It's really hard, and no one gets mad when you're in bow seat and you do it. So I'll have to work on that.
That's bow seat's job.
But it's so fun. Looking everywhere.
It is. Also, I will say the photo of all of you guys watching us do our race in Urba is one of my favorite photos. There's like a photo of like you and a bunch of other people like watching it on like a laptop.
I mean, it was like
you look stressed. Everyone looks stressed.
It was so stressful.
It's like-
I mean, it's just like, it's not that I don't think people didn't have confidence in you guys. Like, it was like 100% confidence. It's just like so stressful. You can all answer this question because I would like to know. But Deli, we can start with you. Has it sunk in that you're going to the Olympics? Like, what does accomplishing this goal mean to you?
I mean, I think it's still surreal for sure. It's almost even hard to talk about, because it's just like has been a dream for so long. Like from the age of 10, like I was like, I want to go to the Olympics, and then to be here now, it's just like I think younger me would be so overjoyed and like shocked because I was not an athletic kid, and I think that there's still a lot of people out there that are like her, like how did she make the Olympics? Like I have no coordination. It's funny though, because I feel like we do the same thing like year after year. Like we just like train and try to be at our best and like make the world's teams. And so it's just like crazy how this year it's just like for the Olympics, And I think that that's just something where it's like we're just doing the same thing that we've been doing like year after year. And it's just like great that we're like in a place with our fitness and like where our bodies are to like have made a boat this year, because there's like always a chance that you could be injured that year and like you could have been working so hard throughout that quadrennial and have been putting down amazing results, and it's just like that's the year that you don't make it. So I'm just like so grateful that like I was able to stay in one piece like through the finish line and make it here now. So
yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question. Like, it's super cool that you guys are all first time Olympians, and how, Grace, maybe I'll throw this to you, like how do you feel now? Because we're like back in Princeton, back training. There's obviously another goal. Like I know you guys are not done. Like FOQR was not the end goal. So what is the vibe now? Like, do you feel like things are different, or is it just sort of, all right, we know the training we have to do, we're back?
Yeah. We joke. We always say like we're so back, but like the truth is like we never left, I got a lot of like overwhelmed with the amount of support received via text and social media post FOQR. And I've had a few people reach out to me and have been like, wow, I'm so happy that you've stuck with this for so long. And I like finally you're seeing it pay off. And I think that is like very kind to say. And I think like I understand that the Olympics are a pretty big deal, like a huge deal. But I think for me, reading that was kind of weird. I'm like, it kind of pays off every day, And like, I think us getting through selection was crazy. Getting through domestic trials and the training leading up to FOQR, and not only qualifying, but winning that race, and like being in contention for a podium spot this year. I think that is insanely amazing. And I think I have not processed, probably you can tell by my answer, I haven't really processed the Olympics at all. Like I think like each year we train for worlds and we race worlds, and then the season's done for the summer, and it's like we selected, we trained, and we raced. So now we get to do this cool thing that like I've never done in a US lineup, and in any lineup, I don't row anywhere else, but like like which is train in the same lineup again for the Olympics. So now we have 2 more months after we've just worked for, what was it, pre FOQR, like 6 weeks or something. So it's like now I think the vibe is very much like we have work to do and we have another step, like the big final step. I think FOQR was a huge step for us to make the team this year and to like join all the other women on the roster. Like that was huge. But I think like getting to that podium with the rest of the team, like we have every boat right now is like probably in line for like medal contention. And I think like our crew we want to be right up there with them. And I think we can do that. We just gotta, every day we show up and we still have work to do. So
Teal, and really anyone, but I'll ask Teal first. Did you do anything fun for yourself to celebrate?
We had a really fun dinner after with our families and friends who were there. So that was really fun. And then we came back and the rest of the boat went home because they hadn't been home in a while. And I live in Princeton. So I was like, this isn't super exciting to be here alone. So my extended family lives in upstate New York. So I went to visit them for a few days, which was really nice. And then I think, yeah, it definitely took a few days. And I think it still is processing. But I think the first few days getting home, it like kind of felt like this crazy fever dream. So I think it was really nice to have the time to like kind of come down from it, process, and then like reset. And then it's been like really fun to get back in the boat with everyone this week. I don't think that was really answering the question, but
No, it was. I asked Sophia that question, and she was like, "Oh, I ate an ice cream sandwich in my car." Solid.
That's a good treat.
That's a great celebration.
Similarly, and Lauren, maybe you can answer this. I've heard a big talk about Olympic tattoos. Is that
Yes.
true, or is that a just talk?
Oh no, it's for sure a thing. We've discussed. I think that's obviously that's a post-Olympics thing. Can't do that beforehand. Bad juju. But it would be Deli's first tattoo. So we gotta get our tattoos.
What?
Deli, where are you gonna put it?
I don't know. Right across my forehead. No. Secretly, no. I don't know. I'm going back and forth because I've never like thought of myself as like a tattoo girly, so I can't say.
I knew you were gonna say tattoo girly.
But I'm very excited.
That's awesome. You guys should get it in France. I feel like that's a thing that people do it like
Whoa.
at the Olympics.
You know somebody?
Yeah, I have my French tattoo artist friend. Is there anything that you guys are excited about? Maybe I'll throw this one back over to Teal. Is there anything you're excited about at the Olympics, like besides racing?
I think just getting to experience it all.
There's no one thing you're looking forward to?
I don't know. I'm excited to get to watch other events once we're done racing. Aside from the race. First, I'm excited for the racing. Second, I'm excited to get to watch other sports after.
I'm excited to watch you race.
Yeah, we're excited to watch you.
Watch you and the lightweights and the 8 and the 4 and the single. It's gonna be electric. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to watch everyone too. And it's wild. Like I learned from Molly's Instagram yesterday that the US is like the only country to have qualified all the women's boats for the second Olympics in a row. It's pretty.
Yeah. Women.
I know. Go us.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask more than one of you this question, but Lauren, we can start with you. This is a bit of a cheesy question, but what advice would you have for people? You know, I think that kind of the past year of your life, like now looks very pretty with a bow packaged of like, oh, I failed to accomplish something and then I worked hard and then I accomplished it. So, you know, that's things that people deal with all the time in their life. So what would you say is your like advice to someone who's maybe, you know, just finished their 2023 World Championships, so to speak?
I think my advice would be to like give yourself the time to process your emotions. I know we're hyping our sports psychs, but I truly do think that like having someone to help you with that, but also like it can be really hard mentally to go from a place like that, especially for us. A lot of the times you just go right back into training and you don't really take the time to stop and like appreciate your accomplishments, even if it's not where you wanted to end, to like recognize the things that you like did that truly were like even if you don't win, you went to the World Championships or you did something that like puts you in a place that like maybe not a lot of other people have done, or even if a lot of other people have done it, like that's still pretty awesome that you're accomplishing things. And that's kind of like even in daily life, like you accomplish so many things on a daily basis that you just kind of do and don't recognize and don't like take a moment to be like, wow, that was like really cool. I did that. That was awesome. I'm proud of myself. For me, it was very much like I would be like, you need to take the moment and be like, celebrate what you've done, and then you can get back to work. And then you can keep moving forward with that like knowledge and like experience behind you so you can like just keep moving up.
100%. Grace, any advice for others that look up to you? So many people look up to Grace.
No.
They do. So many people.
I'm just a kid. I would say the win or learn with the one step at a time mentality has like worked wonders for me this year. Like I think that what Lauren's saying, give yourself the time, give yourself grace. You can go back and process and take note of the things that you're unhappy with or the things that didn't really work out and see what you can learn from that to move forward. And as you move forward, take those steps small. The smaller the better. Like take it day by day, session by session, break it up into digestible chunks, like where you can find the small victories, and then all of those things will add up to something that's beautiful and amazing. Like I think we all experienced that this year in our own ways, coming from our own defeats or our own just being unhappy with performances and or stuff like that to where we are now.
Very good. They will continue to look up to you, the children and the adults. I'm an adult who looks up to you.
Wow. I look up to you too.
Deli, anything to add?
Yeah. I think that I just would echo the like celebrate the process. You know, you finish a 90-minute erg and you're like not feeling that great. Like celebrate that you were able to like persevere and like hold yourself accountable to like get through that erg and like execute it the way that you wanted to. Like I think just like recognizing like it's a hard journey and to like celebrate like even the smallest of wins. I think like throughout this process, like this whole podcast, like hearing everyone's answers to these questions just has helped me realize how powerful our communication has been through this whole process. Like every answer, I feel like I knew exactly what someone would say in response, or like they would say something and I'm like, yeah, that like captures how we were all feeling so well in that moment. I would really like encourage people to like talk to their teammates and the people around them and like lean on them through the process, because I think it's so helpful to like be your best self when you show up to that like starting line and like have that like trust in your teammates that you're like all going to be there and like pulling for one another. So
I feel like you guys are just really endorsing sports psychology.
It's so good for you. It's good for your brain.
I'm just really psyched, you know, like sports psyched.
yeah.
Teal, last but not least, what is your advice for those listening?
I think these three captured it really well. I mean, yeah, enjoy the process, enjoy spending time with your teammates, because I think like looking back, you're going to remember the people you were surrounded by and the experiences you had with them. So I think just enjoying the process, knowing that it's going to get hard, but that's why you're choosing to do it.
Preach. Well, I always ask people at the end if anyone has any questions for me. I'm not sure if I gave you guys that warning, but if anyone has any questions, you may ask them. And otherwise, it's totally fine if you don't.
How did you celebrate?
Are you going to get another tattoo?
Yeah, are you getting
that
more
too.
rings?
More rings?
2 rings.
No,
Adding to it?
no, I'm not. But I would love to come with you and hype woman you up while you get yours. That would be fun. And I did not do much to celebrate, but I will. Well, I feel like it's so interesting, right? We like accomplish things and then we're just like, oh yeah, it's chill. For me, last weekend, 2 weekends ago, whenever World Cup was, it was a couple days later. And I was like, I gotta like do something because like that was pretty cool and it could maybe never happen again. So like I gotta like feel good about myself or something. Yeah. But it's so weird in sports, right? Because there's always like the next thing. So you don't want to celebrate too much because you're like, I don't want to have been a has-been. I want to continue to be. I don't know. I did not say that very eloquently, but
that's why the journey is so important, because when you achieve your goal, it's not gonna make it all worth it magically.
Preach. Yeah.
Wise words, Deli.
Yeah,
wow.
That's true. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this. It was super fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
it
having
was really fun.
Thanks for listening, and thank you so much to Lauren, Teal, Deli, and Grace for coming on. I really appreciate their openness and honesty and hope everyone feels inspired by them and inspired to do some sports psych, which was a real highlight of the episode. So to end the show this week, I am sharing a quote from Roger Federer's commencement speech he just gave at Dartmouth. It's a great speech overall. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube, but I really liked this one thing he said. So from Roger Federer, talent has a broad definition. Most of the time, it's not about having a gift, it's about having grit. So have a great week. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye. I'd love to hear from you, so send us a topic suggestion, or if you'd like to submit a question for our Ask Kristi Anything segment, head to our website, theother3years.com.